Perfect. We rolling. Miles, man, we got you back. Part three. We've been trying to coordinate this thing, but man, it's all in good timing. And man, I feel like this
For
time
sure.
right now is perfect. I'm super excited about this conversation. Right now, bro, it's going all throughout social media. And I see Graham Hancock, he's about to have a whole show come out next month on Netflix about ancient America. And
Oh,
I
I
thought
ain't even
about you.
see that for sure.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to premiere like October 16th. But man, I thought about you instantly, right? Because he was talking
Mhm.
about how timelines, they don't match. It doesn't sound right. There's a whole ancient civilization that was here before the quote unquote Native Americans that we are taught about today. And again, man, I thought about you, our previous conversations. And in that text message, one of the things for tonight's framework that really caught my attention for sure was the ancient Mississippians, the Mayas, and the Incans, and the Incas being part of the Atlanteans, basically. And when we talk about just Atlanteans and Atlantis, and these topics come up all the time, but I'm just super excited about breaking this thing down, man. But for
For sure.
first part, we know about ancient Africa, we know about ancient empires and things like that, but Atlanteans is a thing that's always brought up in the conversation when people want to talk about ancient mysteries, especially here in the ancient Americas. How did they make up what we know as the Atlanteans when it comes to the Mississippians, the Mayans, and the Incas?
Okay, so you mean like how are how are these two groups making up collectively what we know as the Atlanteans?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, cool. So it's a lot of different areas that one kind of has to be versed in. But if
Hmm.
we know anything about like ancient Egypt or ancient Greece, so ancient Greece is younger than ancient Egypt, right?
Right.
So you have many scholars or many like statesmen that are from Greece that are going and being educated in
Hmm.
Egypt at a certain point, like 590 BC, 300 BC, so the 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 Greeks really revered the Egyptians for what they knew,
Hmm.
or for what it seemed to be like what they knew, just the practices that they had, the different cult like religious beliefs, and the architectural, the
Hmm.
mathematical understanding, um, you know, the different ways that their society was set up. Like Greece was
Yeah.
really into like being enlightened, like enlightened thinkers.
Hmm.
So a guy by the name of a statesman, a Greek statesman by the name of Solon, in I want to say 590 BC, was traveling through Egypt and being educated in Egypt, like in some of the most holiest and sacred of temples in Egypt.
Right.
So Egypt revered their ancestors that came from the west, like from the far west, which was um, the Atlanteans. So this high civilization of
Hmm.
builders and calendar makers and mathematicians and engineers, they were learning this information that they knew in Egypt from the travelers that were coming across from the Atlantic Ocean.
Right.
So Solon took this information back to Greece in 590 BC, and he was pretty much having like mythical conversations because the Greeks were like really into like comedy and literature and like theater. So it was like entertaining conversations that just spread throughout parties and social gatherings and different political um, groups and meetings and such.
Mhm.
But when you go down the line to, I'm just trying to give everybody like a
Yeah. You
backstory of this.
good. You good.
So yeah, so like when you go down the line to like the 300s BC, Plato come
Hmm.
into effect, and Plato is the one that really put his little twist on it. So
Right.
he's been hearing about things, and you got different people that are in this particular time in Greece that really want to put some literature down and be known
Yeah.
for having something that's thought provoking, or something like that. So Plato, he puts his spin on the Atlantis myth
Hmm.
that he receives circulating that really came 200 years earlier from Solon being in Egypt, and he's from that, the whole mythology of Atlantis and Greek gods and Roman gods really and really Egyptian gods come from this knowledge of this high civilization across the Atlantic Ocean. So I say all that to say is that the Mayans, the Mississippians in North America, the Mayans, the Toltecs that's in Central America, and the
Hmm.
Peruvians, the Incas that's in South America. They are all collectively practicing the same thing and have virtually the
Wow.
same religious systems,
Hmm.
traditions, cult-like beliefs, fasts, feasts, um, calendar celebrations, and they have some of the same deities. So all of this information is traveling to that side of the world because we are building in that side of the world. And collectively, that's just what we make up. So this is just this power that is organizing under one particular code from north to south in a strong manner, and a warlike nation, highly sophisticated mathematical engineers. And this information is being sent over to the east because people are talking about it. We're there sometimes in the far distant past, like before the ancient Egyptians kind of really arise or whatever. We're there. Um, and they know us as the Atlanteans because we're across the Atlantic Ocean. That's not to say that we
Mm.
called ourselves the Atlanteans,
Got you. Yep.
but
Yep.
they're the observer. And like when you look at the terminology, we are past Hercules pillars, which is the
Hmm.
Rock of Gibraltar. So if you think
Yep.
about the Mediterranean Sea and this world that's encompassing Greece and Italy and that whole Mediterranean world, when you pass the Rock of Gibraltar, that's the Pillars of Hercules, and that's going out to the Atlantic Ocean. And to them, that's the Atlanteans over there, because we're the Atlantic Isle that is where all this high civilization is coming from. So yeah, I hope that answered that question.
For sure.
But just to kind of put that all in a nutshell, yeah, you have the Mississippians, the Mayans, and the Incans that are all practicing the same spiritual beliefs, same
Right.
government setup, and this is known to that side of the world as the Atlanteans.
Yeah. And Miles, on that text message as well, reading everything where our topic lists, something else that really caught my eye on that same standpoint somewhat is the Greeks, the Romans, Judaism, their versions of mythology, all copied Atlantean stories of kings and
Yeah,
heroes. And in school, everything that we're always studying is things from Greek mythology, Roman
right.
stories, the Bible, those stories. So if you can break that overall statement down, because that can be very controversial. And also, I'm just extremely interested in hearing this breakdown from you, bro.
Okay, so ask that question one more time because I just
Yeah,
want to make
for
sure
sure.
I'm solid on the way
Of
that I
course.
answer
Of
that.
course. When it comes to Greek mythology, Roman mythology, and as well
Yeah.
when it comes to Judaism, certain people they will consider that mythological stories as well. Seeing you send that text message of how they copied Atlantean stories of our kings and heroes. If you can't break that down, how did they copy these stories?
Okay, perfect. So it happened in a couple different periods in time, the way that they
Hmm.
copy these stories. Okay, because so what I've been doing lately is having to research the history of the Hebrew Bible, how that came about, the Septuagint, Greek Jews, the history of Canaan and all those particular things. But those resources that I sent you
Yeah.
uh really give a lot of insight into what is known and what hasn't like really been dispersed to people. So I'm
Mhm.
trying to hone in on that particular question because
Mhm.
okay, so let me just start it off like this. So the Mosaic law, right?
Mhm.
Mosaic law is has its origin in the Americas. Hebrew as a script, as a language, has its origins in the Americas. And this information was passed along through us to the Egyptians, but then the Greeks are the ones that got the information. Because when we
Mm,
start going into like really the construction of these particular beliefs, the Greeks, I mean the Jews when they were in Elephantine didn't have Mosaic law, but they were like considered this Jewish group, but they didn't have Mosaic laws. They didn't have Mosaic rites and rituals. They didn't have sacrifice. They didn't have purity. They didn't have any of these particular customs. So it's really, man, it's so like so many different things we have to touch on because it's like the
mhm.
Maccabee War that we have to touch on. We have to touch on hold on one second. Let's and
Yeah,
we could pause this. We could pause the live
for
or how we
sure.
gonna do it when we edit it.
Hey, post edits. So
Okay,
right
for
now,
sure.
I know we're probably like 15 minutes in, so I'm gonna stamp this down.
Okay. All right, for sure. So let me pull up this particular information out of the 10 tribes of Israel, historically
Mm,
identified with the Aborigines of the Western Hemisphere by Barbara Allen Simon, 1836.
mhm.
Okay. So this is out of the collection of the Oxford University, and she's pretty much speaking on all of the different historians that have come across uh, in the Spanish times, that came across in the 1500s, that came over to Mexico and went into
Mm,
Florida and went into Peru and saw that these people were practicing Mosaic law rituals and
right.
customs and traditions, having circumcision,
Mm,
having calendar feasts that resemble the Passover, the Atonement,
yeah.
the Tabernacle, you know. But none of these particular things that we're doing over here is relating anything to like Jesus or a Moses, like the story that's put together that's out there, you know. So these uh, these particular rituals and rites seem to have made their way over there in the times of the Egyptian times, like when Egypt was ruling and they were sort of a power over there. You know, they call it the Phoenician and ancient Phoenician, which is like ancient Hebrew, but they don't really give a. That's supposed to be like modern day Libya right now, or I
Mhm.
believe, or one of those particular Middle East countries. But Phoenician is really it the name itself means like person from a far land or person from a distant land or something like that. But oh man, it's so dense and so packed in. um Really, that particular ritual, those particular rites somehow made their way into the Greeks hands because the Greeks were really big on big on like rituals and calendars and the way society is supposed to be set up, like democratic societies and republics.
Mhm.
So they had a lot of information. Like in the Library of Alexandria, when the Greeks are in Egypt, they're learning a lot of different information that's being
Right.
archived by the Egyptians.
Mhm.
So they come in contact with these particular laws and they start making stories about them, and you have groups that are trying to gain identities around these particular small documents that they're preserving from
Mm,
uh periods in time that's like 200 years before them. So yeah, to kind of answer that question, I hope I kind of tailored that in. But
Oh,
the
for
most
sure. Are you good, Mouse?
okay, cool. Yeah, the Mosaic laws is basically like has its origin in the Americas, and we can see that in all the different writings such as this. Like
Mm-hmm.
from we could say we could go into the researches into the lost histories of America by uh, W.S. Blackett,
Mm-hmm.
1883.
Mm-hmm.
Like the histories are all documented in here. I'm wondering if I could like read
Oh,
how much
please.
time we have because I
Yeah.
didn't like
Hey,
marked up
bro,
all these
we gonna go
particular
for at least
areas.
like an hour and a half, Mouse. Hey, we actually gonna break all this stuff down. So,
Okay,
bro,
bet.
you
Okay,
good?
bet.
You good on time?
All right, bet. Let me see where we could start at real quick.
Are you a dope creative looking to further monetize your content? Well, let me tell you about Peep. Peep is the best new revolutionary platform for creatives by creatives. You can set custom pricing for your content where you can get the full monetization for what you do. On top of that, you can set custom payment dates so you don't have to wait to the 21st of the month like YouTube. You can get paid when you want, how you want. And on top of that, you can meet with fellow creatives that are doing similar things such as you to take what you do to the next level. I'm telling you guys, Peep is what's next. Unlike Patreon, you can customize each piece of your content, every episode, every song, BTS content, photography, videography, and so much more. If you're ready to get started, you can use this QR code right here and also the link in my bio. And every single time that you refer fellow creatives, you can monetize that as well. I'm telling you guys, Peep is what's next. Tap in, and I cannot wait to see you guys over there. Peace.
That was perfect.
Okay, so we coming out of researches into the lost histories of the Americas, or
Mm-hmm.
the zodiac, known to be an old terrestrial map in which the Atlantic Isle is delineated so that light can be thrown upon the obscure histories of the earthworks and the ruined cities of America. So, illustrated by 77 engravings by W.S. Blackett, 1883. So, in this particular section of the book, on page 189, they're talking about the Indians of those tribes had the custom of tearing out the hair like the Jewish uh, novitiate, priests and proselytes. They were divided into tribes with badges, families of eagles, panthers, tigers, and etc. They had the cherubinical, sorry about my pronunciation,
Mm-hmm.
figures. They had the same regard for lineal descent as the Israelites. They called God Loak. Ishtohulo is great holy spirit of fire. They have the word Jehovah or Jehovah. They was using a Y instead of the J, which they pronounce Yahweh. They have no idol in any way, but he then says that they have a wooden statue which leads them in war. In their dances, they sing Hallelujah, Yehovah. So these are Hebrew words that are being known, sacred Hebrew words that are being said by these people, which have been not in contact with anybody from that part of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Um, they have the idea that they are the peculiar and chosen people of God. They have annual fruit offerings. Every warrior must make 3 wolfish campaigns with the holy ark before he can wear the buffalo horns or his head or have the tail behind him and dance. So even when we go to like Theodore the Bride, where they have Saturniona and all those different engravings, we can see them doing those particular things that's being stated in these words. So the Mississippians, the Mayans, the Incas, they all have the same rituals and rites, same purification
Mm-hmm.
rites, like as
Mm-hmm.
like the ancient supposed Israelites. You know what I'm saying? Um, yeah. I'm gonna let you ask some more questions. I'm gonna get into some more pull. I got a lot of highlights.
I got you. And Miles, man, listen, bro, you can cook. My job is just facilitate and let you do your thing. But man, you
Yeah.
said something that was very poignant as well about a piece of wood leading them in war. Ark of the Covenant with the Hebrews, that's what they used to use in war as well. When Moses and
Hmm.
Joshua, they would lead with that, and that was made out of a special piece of wood too. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of parallels, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then too, it's just from seeing things as well growing up, like on the History Channel, or just seeing certain people, archaeologists, historians, they always talk about finding ancient Hebrew in America. So seeing everything that you're breaking down from this whole document is just exposing all of that. But yeah, look, I'm just here. If you want to read some more inserts from that, bro, I am more than happy to just listen to that
Okay, for sure. I'm gonna pull up something out of this particular source. Give me 1 second.
for sure.
All right, check this one. So this one is coming out of 18, and you could get these all online actually. Like
Wow.
it's crazy because they all archived, by either universities or by the Library of Congress, and some of them are like not in print anymore.
Wow.
So you can only pretty much see like the PDF of the actual book that they have, and then all the PDF pages that they made.
Wow.
But this is information that you're not going to find in any library or on any shelf. Like you really need to know who was where, who was like a soldier on a particular expedition, or who wrote
Mhm.
about these particular findings. Like if you don't know or have any direction to search the information, I'm just not gonna find it, man. But it's
Yeah.
there though. It's crazy.
Wow.
So this one is coming out of View of the Hebrews, exhibiting the destruction of Jerusalem, the certain restoration of Judah and Israel, the present state of Judah and Israel, and an address on the prophet Isaiah relative to their restoration by Ethan Smith,
Mm.
pastor of a church in Pulteney. Um, so these are all like first hand accounts, you know what I'm saying? Stuff that people are saying, writing, and discussing. So I'm gonna go down to page 76. It says, let's see. Okay. It says, let several suppositions now be made. Suppose an extensive continent had lately been discovered, away northeast from Medina, and at the distance of a year and a half's journey, a place probably destitute of inhabitants since the flood, till the time of casting out of Israel. Suppose a people to have been lately discovered in that sequestered region, appearing as we should rationally expect the nation of Israel to appear at this period, had the account been given by the writer in Esdras been a fact. So they talking about the Bible.
Yep.
Suppose them to be found in tribes with heads of tribes, but destitute of letters and in a savage state. Suppose among their different tribes the following traditions the following traditionary fragments are by credible witnesses picked up, some particulars among one region of them, and some among another, while all appear evidently to be of the same family. So some people is doing one thing, some people doing the other, some people is all doing the same stuff, but it appear like they doing the same thing. Suppose them to have escaped the polytheism of the pagan world and to acknowledge one and one only God, the Great Spirit who created all things and the unseen. Suppose the name retained by many of them of this Great Spirit to be Ale, the old
Mm,
Hebrew name of God, and Yahweh or Yahweh, whereas the Hebrew name for the Lord was Jehovah. Also, they call the great first cause Yah, the Hebrew name being Jah. Suppose you find most of them professing great reverence for this great Yahweh, calling him the great benef, beneficent, supreme
mm,
Holy Spirit, and the only object of worshiping. Suppose the most intelligent of them to be elated with the idea that God has ever been the head of their community, that their fathers were once in covenant with them, and the rest of them and the rest of the world were the cursed people. The Jews think that too, like the Gentiles. You know what I'm
yep.
saying? As out of the covenant with God. Suppose you find them on certain occasions singing in religious dance, hallelujah, and praise to Yah. Also singing Yahweh, Shilu, Yahweh, and making use of many names and phrases evidently Hebrew. You find them counting their time as did ancient Israel in a manner different from all of the other nations. They keep a variety of religious feasts, which must resemble those kept in ancient Israel. You find an evening feast among them, in which a bone of the animal must not be broken. If the provision be more than one family can eat, a neighbor can be called in to help eat it. And if any of it still be left, it must be burned before the next rising sun. You find them eating bitter vegetables to cleanse themselves from sin. So purification, you know what I'm saying? They even had like where you drink snake venom and you throw up. And that's in Theodore de Bry's. Like they show Saturnionus people doing that same thing. We could pull that up too. But let me
Sure.
finish this off.
Okay.
Um, you find you find them eating bitter vegetables to clean themselves from sin. You find they never eat the hollow of the thigh of any animal. They inform that the fathers practice circumcision. Some of them have been in the habit of keeping a jubilee. They have their places answering to the cities of refuge in ancient Israel. In these no blood is ever shed by any avenger. You find them with their temples, such as they be, their holies of holies in their temples, into which it is death for a common person to enter. They have their high priests who officiate in their temples and make their yearly atonement there in a singular pontifical dress, which they fancy to be the likeness of one worn by their predecessors in ancient times, with their breastplate and various holy ornaments. The high priest, when addressing to his people what they call the old divine speech, calls them the beloved and holy people and urges them to imitate their virtuous ancestors, urges them
Mm,
to imitate their virtuous ancestors and tell them of their beloved and flowing land of milk and honey. They tell you that Yahweh once chose their nation from all the rest of mankind. So this is just like, and then hold on, because it just go on and on and on. You know what I'm saying? And it's so entertaining to read. Like those
yeah.
people that we talked about with Saturniona in the 1500s are practicing this ancient belief system, and it's being practiced on code from north to south, and it goes back like far beyond Egypt, far beyond Mesopotamia, far beyond Greece. Like these are Mosaic law, all of the customs and traditions, all of the rituals, all of the like the moral law is originating here. And when they get here, they're like, damn, we only read about this stuff. You know what I'm saying? You just got to know European history and the timelines over there because once the Greeks took over, like Alexander the Great, you can't just think about Jesus and Jesus walking the earth and all that stuff. You got to think about Alexander the Great. You got to think about Cyrus. You got to think about all these different real people. So we be thinking like this biblical stuff that are like real narratives, But some of it actually is true because these are real people that was really practicing this stuff, and they just got informed about it like through like little hearsay stuff. Well, really, when the Egyptians probably had the real knowledge, and the Greeks turned it into mythology, and then the rest of the world just kind of captured on to that.
Yeah.
But let's see. So keep an annual feast at the time their ears of corn become fit for use. None of their corn is eaten till a part of it is brought to the feast, and certain religious ceremonies performed. You find them keeping an annual feast in which 12 men must cut 12 sapling poles to make a booth. Like these are like the
Wow.
tabernacle shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Here on
And
the
then
altar,
12 as well.
12 as
Day
well.
12.
Here on the
Yeah.
altar made of 12 stones. Here on the
It's
altar
always
made of
12.
12 stones of which no tool may pass. They must cut, they must sacrifice. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
wow.
It's
And you
it's
got 12
wild,
tribes
man.
of Israel.
So this is
That's
out
insane.
of views of the Hebrews, exhibiting the destruction of Jerusalem, the certain restoration of Judah and Israel, the present state of Judah and Israel,
Mm,
1823. You know what I mean? Uh, but yeah, bro, it's deep, bro. Everybody need to look at this. You could get that PDF too.
yes.
Um, Tap into this because this will clarify a lot of different stuff, man, that really went on. I was really coming out of this book right here, The Lost Histories, Research into the Lost Histories of America by W.S. Blackett.
Hmm.
It's so much game in here, bro, that will just blow your mind on what the real deal is, what really happened, you know. But yeah, any questions? Let me see. I'll pull up some while you
Yeah.
have anything
Hey,
else.
Miles, bro, you good, brother, man. I'm telling you, I'm telling you. But yes, Lost Histories in the Americas. And I think that that title is perfect. And hearing about all the ancient Hebrew customs with the stones, all of that. I guess my question towards that, it would be this, Miles. Where and what happened to all of the documents, the stones? Do you believe that the Smithsonian potentially swayed in and took some of those stones, some of those
That
documents? Because
is a
yeah,
great question, bro.
yeah, yeah. Because clearly we are talking about a truly sophisticated society that had customs, that had dietary restrictions, that had documentation. So where did all of this information go?
Let me show you. Man, I'm glad you asked that question, bro. Was it in here that I just? Well, I'm gonna read you something crazy.
Hmm.
Like you said, where did that information go? Listen to this, bro. All right, it's like I got the pull up, but I'm trying to get to the beginning of it.
Hmm.
Um, all right, check this out. So this is out of the 10 tribes of Israel, historically identified with the Aborigines of the Western Hemisphere by Barbara Simon Allen, 1836. So you asked that question, where did this information go? Okay. So it says general notices of the opinions of Torquemada,
Hmm.
Herrera, da Costa, Gamarra, Cortez, de Omes, Toribio, Benavente, Martyr, and Gumela. So these are different writers, different church people, soldiers even that have written or documented what they saw if they were in Mexico, if they were in Florida, if they were in Peru. They wrote things down, and some of them were like, I mean, many of them in this times like directly tied to either the church or the government. You know what I'm saying? So when they get to this world, it's mind blowing for them. Like that's why Columbus named the people of the Caribbean Los Niños Indios, like which is Indian. Los Niños Indios, these the children of God, the true children of God. When they got to Haiti, they were speaking what they considered to be broken Hebrew, even in Haiti. Okay, so Columbus was like, wow. Okay. He even took a Hebrew interpreter. So for some reason he knew, but
Exactly.
he had to get that from, the brothers that was over there. But they came over here and they had to find these tribes that have heard about. But when they finally found it, it was like it's either the work of the devil or like we can't let this get out because it'll fulfill prophecy. It will be like everybody over here will worship these people because Peru, the Mississippians, the Mayans, they all got civilizations that are of the
Yes.
highest orders with
Yes.
the highest riches and stuff. So these Catholic priests and heads of these churches were just like destroy it. It need to be don't ever write about it.
Mm.
If you write about this, you will be put to death.
Yeah.
So and then they speak about this stuff, like the firsthand things that these people are saying. Let me just find where to start
Hmm.
at, like the perfect place to start. Okay, here we go. It says when we read in Gomara and other early Spanish historians of the prodigies which preceded the overthrow of Mexico, so nearly resembling those which Josephus records to have happened shortly before the final destruction of Jerusalem, it is impossible to perceive the spirit in which these relations were composed and the feelings which were latent behind the comparison. So it says the Peruvians, when first discovered by the Spaniards, had attained a high degree of civilization, and it would appear from a passage of Gomara's history in the Indies that the Spaniards were struck with the resemblance of the tribes of India to the Jews. They are all very like Jews in appearance and voice, for they have large noses and speak through the throat. Torquemada, which is another person who does not allow that the Mexicans borrow any of their analogous customs from the Jews, nevertheless, in treating in the 37th chapter of the 10th book of his Indian monarchy of their art of divination expresses himself thus Sagun doctrine of he speaks in a different language, but he says he kind of puts it to the point where it's like he couldn't believe that they were from the tribes of Israel,
Yep.
but he's like in disbelief. So it says by which he clearly shows the channel of his thought. So they're saying like he put it to the side, like he didn't take it as credible, but he said something that showed how he really was thinking, his
Mhm.
subconscious mind, like I would never
Wow.
accept that. Okay. Such was the reserve the Spanish historians imposed upon themselves in treating of Quetzalcoatl, the Mexican Messiah. So it says, again, it is evident that in Mexico, great pains were taken by the monks and clergy to root out the resemblance of him, and legendary tales relating to his life were not allowed to be inserted in books published either in that city or in Spain.
Yo,
So,
all right. Miles, pause. The Mexican Messiah, bro.
right.
Please break that down.
Oh,
What is
yeah.
that?
So
Who is that?
Quetzalcoatl, bro, Quetzalcoatl, which is later on like Kukulkan, has the same
Okay.
story
I didn't know
as
that.
Jesus Christ.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was born of a virgin. He
What?
was yeah, he was born of a virgin. He was
Kukulkan.
crucified with the nails in his hands and feet.
Wow.
They stuck him in the side while he was on the crucifixion cross. But he was a martyr. So
Mm,
he was considered a martyr over here, like
right.
dying for something, dying for a great cause. And that particular story got transmitted into their Jesus story.
Wow.
Um, but it okay, so it says the temple of Cholula was dedicated to Quetzalcoatl. Bernal Diaz in his history declares that he had forgot the name of the idol to whom it was dedicated, although he remembers the number of steps which led up to the temple. This was either out of compliance with the wishes or in obedience to the command of others. Let me see. Hold on one second. Okay, here we go. Early Spanish writers believed that the Mexican and Peruvian government laws and commonwealth were modeled after the manner of the Jews, though the reason they assign for this is absurd. They say that Satan was jealous of the institutions which God had given to his chosen people and therefore determined to imitate them in the new world. So they was like, hold on. We've been on this is only fictional tales and mythology in Europe. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? They're trying to like write stuff to fulfill prophecy. And then they come over here and they're like, yo, this is all being done. All of the commandments, all of the ritual rites that's in this Mosaic law, this Hebrew Bible or Hebrew manuscript, really. Um, all of this ancient stuff that's only been like tales and stuff that we like really just hear about is being practiced by these people, like these
Mm.
crazy, super powerful people. It say, uh, it say they have not failed either to point out, and this is, mind you, this is being read in 1830. This has been written in 1836. All right, so this is before Israel is a state. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's
Yes.
before any of that.
And Miles, if you think about it, 1836 isn't too far off from 1492 either.
Not at all,
Only talk
bro.
about 250 to 300 years, if that. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they were really even still constructing the whole Jesus story, still constructing
Mm,
everything. You
yeah.
know what I mean? And they hadn't even found out really about ancient Egypt like that.
Right. Yeah,
You
because
know what I'm
that wasn't
saying?
until when, like 1922, really?
Yeah, it wasn't even
Yeah.
to that part of
Or like
time.
early 1900s. Yes.
So they came over here, and that's really like the I got a note written
Hmm.
down somewhere, and I'm gonna get to it. But that really is the big cover up, bro. That really is the whole reason. And it might be in here. Let's see. It says they have not failed either to point out some curious trace of resemblance to Hebrew usages in certain acts performed by the kings and Incas, and in the external marks of reverence these monarchs received from their subjects. Unfortunately, ecclesiastics receive no encouragement to write histories of that nation, nor does it appear that they were allowed to publish them, since the works of Medieta of Torribo de Benavente or Motelina, a copy of whose valuable history Dr. Robertson seems to have procured from Spain, but of which he evidently made no use, and of Diomas and Sahagún have never been printed. And strange to say, the royal historiographers of the Indies, Herrera, attempts to discredit relations of Torquemada, which may account for the relation of the latter Arthur having become so extensively rare. Not more than a century after its publication, that the editor of the second edition says that he despaired for a long time of being able to procure a copy of it in all Spain, but reasons too long to be here recited perfectly convince us that the office of royal historiographer of the Indies was instituted quite as much for the purpose of veiling as the purpose of veiling as of developing truths.
Mhm.
So they had their whole institution in covering up all of this stuff. Like
Yes.
they didn't want none of this information to get out to nobody. You know what I mean? And this is just like Spain. You know what I'm saying? Like England got a different
Mm-hmm.
agenda.
Agenda.
France got a
Yep.
different agenda. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Um, but yeah. So it says without stating his reasons for dissenting from Las Casas, he assumes it as an undoubted fact that the devil had taken on himself a chosen people in a new world and counterfeited
Mm.
in them the
Wow.
history of the children of Israel and their pilgrimage from Egypt. So they just all thinking like that, but that's the 1500s, 1600s. And then when the 1700s come about, you got Germans and different more educated, enlightened people that are like, this is the Renaissance era. So they're thinking more like Greece. They want to be more, comparable to that type of thought process. So you
Mm.
have people that are like going into the information and trying to let it be out there. You know what I'm saying? Dang, let me see. Charles V, they even speak about in this book right here the Mexican painting. Are they talking about Mexican paintings that were destroyed and burned and like sent to Spain and some
Wow.
archived in the basement and never been seen again, you know, or them immediately being burned and mutilated. But it says the Mexican paintings seem to have become objects of suspicion and mistrust even in Europe. The first that were sent to Spain came to Charles V in 1519. So that's the same
Wow.
person that we see on the Inca calendars, on that king's list or whatever. Peter Martyr mentions them. His description corresponds more exactly with the paintings which is preserved in the Royal Library at Dresden. So they got this at Dresden and they got
In the library.
Saturniana's sculpture at Dresden.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Um, some of the symbols contained in it are not unlike Hebrew letters. So they got scripts, they got paintings, they got Hebrew like words and sacred sayings and they're hiding all of that. You know what I mean?
Hearing that, Miles, it's insane because I know most people it could feel like uncomfortable hearing all of this stuff being just exposed to you because for so long we've been taught X, Y, and Z. But
Uh-huh.
reading all of those documents, man, it's like something had to be over here. It had to because you're talking about now you have the Spanish over here, the Dutch, the French, the English. Everybody wanted to be here and part of the quote unquote new world. So something very peculiar had to be over here. But I'll let you
Mm-hmm.
cook though on your documents.
Okay, bet. Let's see. It's big because it really all start with like Plato. Plato is where they got all that information from, like about us being over here. Because
Yes.
the Egyptians had it, and I wrote something down. I'm gonna grab it. But the Egyptians had it, and once Plato got it in the Greek world, you know, Western civilization is based off of Greek thoughts. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So everything, even our planets, is still kind of Judeo, I mean not
Yep.
Judeo, but Greco-Roman. You know what I'm saying? Jupiter, Mars, Saturn, like this is all
Yep.
Greco-Roman stuff.
Our
Uh,
months,
yeah,
August.
our months, all of
Yep.
that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we could see how that thought process is even still in our world process or world understanding today. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's even with like long words like that, like you
Hmm.
know. So but yeah, it all started with them, man. And it gets so interesting when you just dive into these real histories of us being over here as a high civilization and practice these specific like rites and rituals, and
Hmm.
then s- researching the Bible and researching Mesopotamia, researching
Yep.
Canaan, researching um Persia, ancient Persia.
Hmm.
Like all of this have plays into coming right back over here.
Right.
I was even looking at like the the mythos and the the history of mythology and finding out like Buddha, his name is like Gautama Buddha,
Wow.
and his mama's name is Maya. You know what I'm saying? And so his name is like Guatemala. You got Guatemala in his name,
Wow.
And then you see like, some of our symbols over there as well. It just all gets so interesting, and that kind of is what this was. This one hits on the zodiac sign to be an old terrestrial map, so it talk about
Mhm.
like Vishnu and like the Hindu god
Yeah.
being like really a representation of like South America, how Buddha was really like from over here, how Medusa really was from over here, you know what I'm saying? Anubis and Thoth. These are all Atlanteans from the West,
Yep.
and then you read about the Mayans and the Mississippians and then the Incas, and they're all practicing these particular mosaic laws and traditions,
Yeah.
rites, and rituals.
Yo, Miles, real quick, bro. It's something that truly bothers me is why is the overall academic structure conglomerate, if you will, so comfortable with us being focused on the ancient East? But when it comes to admitting that these things started in the ancient Americas, why is that like such a big no-no when it comes to academia and history?
Right, because these people are like part religious and they have like
That is true. Yes. Yeah,
origin stories that they
that is
want.
true.
So when you think about like the Mediterranean world, they want everything really to have its origins in that side of the world, So they're comfortable with us thinking about or saying that we're from Egypt because it fits into their Mediterranean worldview. Like Egypt was directly involved with Greece, you know
Yeah,
what I'm
and
saying?
Rome. Yep.
Rome and all those things. So it's like
Yep.
that all fits into that particular thing. It just so happens Mosaic law is something that has been like uh captured by one particular group and they started formulating these thoughts around it. But that's Greek. That starts in the Greek times, into the Roman times, into like the fall, the dark ages of Europe, and then that
Hmm.
goes and kind of evolves into later on, you know what I mean? But
Yep.
that is the whole drive, is to have the origin story not be from here, not start here.
Hmm.
Because if you start it here, you're gonna start it with us. You know what I'm saying? And let me see, bro, because there are like really specific things that are said in these books that I have to say out on these airways.
Hmm. Let's do it.
Let's see. Okay, one second. In this book, they specifically talk about uh the 10 tribes of Israel. Let me see, because they talking about us, and then they talk about Mexico. But I really want to get to the point where they talk about the mound building cities. Let's see. Oh, and then I could tell you a little bit of something about um what they wrote about Montezuma. If I could just tell
Oh,
you
for
that real
sure.
quick,
Yeah, for sure.
because they dropped some craziness about Montezuma in here. So I'm
Let's
in
do
the
it.
Lost Histories of America.
Okay.
Uh, W.S. Blackett, the same one, 1883. But this what they say about um, Montezuma. So it says Quetzalcoatl is at the head of the Toltec race, which race is glossed by Nahuas. But this deity had no idols. He introduced monasteries. To him was erected the vast pyramid of Chahula, the base of which was twice as great as that of Cheops in Egypt. So it says, um, the proper name of Mexico was Anuak. The state of civilization among the Mexicans when they were first known to the Spaniards was much more superior to that of the Spaniards themselves. When they were first known, to the Phoenicians, the ancient Mexicans had more fire and were more sensible to impress of honor, more intrepid and more industrious than those of modern times, but they were at the same time more superstitious and cruel. So this is what they say about Montezuma. Perhaps the best idea that can be got of Mexico is what is said of Montezuma. All his palaces were surrounded with pleasant gardens in which was every kind of beautiful flower or odoriferous herb and medicinal plants. It had likewise wood enclosed by walls and furnished with variety of game, in which he frequently sported. In one of the royal buildings was an armory filled with all kinds of offensive and defensive arms, and he employed a number of artificers in manufacturing these, and also artists such as goldsmiths, mosaic worksmen, sculptors, painters, and others, one of whom one whole district consisted solely of dance masters who were trained upon to entertain him. So you remember that one
Yep.
image that we
Hey, I was
saw
just
of
thinking about
him
that too.
in
Yep.
that palace, bro?
Yes. I was just
Yeah,
about
so
to
we
bring that
know
up.
that palace was his by the
Yes.
way they talking.
It was
You know what
huge.
I'm saying? He was huge and he was practicing Mosaic law. He was
Wow.
fasting. He was having certain feasts. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? He had certain purification rituals, you know. Um it says the Mexican temples or tecales, houses of God as they were called, were very numerous. So you had these
Houses of
places,
God.
yeah, they was all
Wow.
over.
Wow.
And it's one statement in here that the author makes. He's like, the mound cities, like the mounds are so numerous in North America that it just indicates a vast empire. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So it says there were several hundreds in each of the principal cities, so the houses of gods. There were solid masses of earth cased with brick or stone, and in their form somewhat resembled the pyramidal structures of ancient Egypt. They also talk about how we build our temples in the manner of the ancient Hebrews. So if you just think about how many temples are here versus when you go over there, it's sporadic. You got them here in, Libya or Lebanon. You
That's
got a
true.
couple over here, but it's not like a whole vast
Mm.
industry of this type
Yes.
of thought process or builder, you know. Um, let's see. The top was a broad area. There's talking more about the building. Um, the top was a broad area on which were erected two towers, 40 or 50 feet high, the sanctuaries in which stood the sacred images of the presiding deities. Before these towers stood the dreadful stone of sacrifice, and two lofty towers on which fires were kept. So we had like eternal fires. This is like a mosaic principle as well, Jewish, all the different tenets that make Jews what they think they are is what we was, exercising. Um, and that's just talking about Central America. I just wanted to read that because I wanted to get that to the people. But
Yeah.
let me see. I gotta get to the point where they're talking about the mound cities in here. It's crazy. So they say here, uh, so they talking about the Mexican race. Like this description of religion to Mexico reads strangely, but as more extended knowledge of the subject shows that the Mexican people were in possession of religious sentiments which will compare advantageously with the most orthodox Christianity. So yeah, man. Orthodox Christianity, when you think about when that started, that's early BC. Like
That's right.
all of this stuff is 10,000, what I mean, way older than that. If you think about
Yes.
100 BCE, 200 BCE versus 5,000 BCE,
Hmm.
6,000 BCE, way over here. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Even the
Yeah.
Egyptians are at like 3,100 BCE, We
Wow.
going way thousands of years early in this part of the world that's disconnected from that part of the world to them. Like we connected
Yes.
because we could go over there, but they
Right.
can't come over here. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So they get bits and pieces of experiences with us. You know what
Come
I
on.
mean? And that's why you get bits and pieces of our architecture and our mathematics and some of our gods and our
Yeah.
thought processes over there. But the
That's
full
right.
true understanding is when you come over here and you see the temples are really erected, the people are really practicing, they got these feasts, they got dances, they got all these particular things, paintings, generational, you know, burial rites, making sure that the feet are facing the east, the
Wow.
mounds are all aligned with with the constellations. Like this is really
Yes.
uh, thousands and thousands, thousands of years old.
And Miles, man, on that same standpoint, I remember our previous episode, if you guys haven't checked that out, Ohio Hopewell, talking about that of these people, man, they were taking pilgrimages back then. And, people, they always talk about Mecca, but our people over here, they were so spiritual. They were already doing that 10,000 years prior.
Right.
Miles, what do you think made our people just so spiritual that we have so many miles for all my family out there that's tuning in, all the people? If you live in Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, y'all could walk outside in your backyard and you could probably see mounds. So things are still left till this day. But Miles, what do you think made them so spiritual as a people that, to your same point, we have mounds all throughout here in North America?
Right. So they believe, it seemed like we believe, honestly, they. So our
Right.
ancestors believe that they descended from these chosen people, like they are the chosen people. So
Hmm.
all of their rites and rituals were put in place to make the younger generation revere the older generation. Because like
Wow.
we had just read where they were speaking about it was a customary thing to revere the old,
That's right.
and want to be like the old or want to uphold the things that they were having, or the different customs and different things, because they just had a high practice about themselves. There was certain things that they didn't eat.
Hmm.
It was celebrations that you had to have certain times of the year. Certain
Hmm.
people had to show up at the temple for the celebration certain
Right.
times of the year. When the woman is going through her menstrual cycle, it's certain things that she got to do, a certain way she
Yeah.
got to stay away from people because her body may be considered unclean. So they got all of these high rites and rituals and understanding in themselves. They're burying they're dead on top of each other in
Wow.
mounds. You know what I'm saying? So they really have a high sense of lineage and
Yes.
connection with who they are and where they come from. Because they putting
Hmm.
it in the earth, you know what I mean? And it's staying there for,
It's still here.
long generations still here,
Yep. That's
and
right.
it's many that they done leveled off. St. Louis used to have, I think, I want to say 20 pyramids. I mean,
20 pyramids,
mounds, like
20
pyramidal
miles.
mounds to St. Louis, like downtown, and they
So,
they they knocked them down and they sold the dirt.
So, Miles, don't you find it very interesting and odd that that's now known as the gateway to the West, and it had all of those things there, with all the
Mm,
mounts there. Yeah,
mm,
that's kind of crazy.
it's crazy. It
The Great
is.
Arc is over there now. Yeah,
The
yep,
Great Arc is over there, pretty much like a symbolism of a damn mound, really, if you want to, you
it's
know.
crazy. Yeah, yeah. I just had to add that, but yeah, man, it's crazy.
Oh man, let me see. I think this page is really a lot of my research is, so I really wanted to get the people to try to understand who we are, you know what I mean?
That's right.
I think that's really important. So what I come to understand is that we are the Mississippians in this whole play, in this whole, narrative or whatever. Our and we can look at our history, the archaeological evidence
Mhm.
of who we are and what we did, and it's all in the Smithsonian, you know. Like it's important that black people understand that, because if we understand who we are with all this information, like real factual information, is, you know, I don't really know where the people going, but if they want to go anywhere on a real legislative type of way and really, you know, make it to where people can't call you certain names or address you in certain documents as this, you know, we checking off, we got a different classification on all of the documents now,
Yeah.
or you know, certain people can't hire blacks or
Mhm.
have this inclusivity because we're classified as a whole different type of thing. You know, it's just so many different things we can do when we kind of get real political on it.
Yeah.
But understanding that side of it is one thing, and then also having an understanding of our real culture before we were tampered with.
Right.
Because right now we don't have a real idea. Like the 12 tribe, I mean, what do you call them? I'm sorry, my brother's the Israelites, the Hebrew
Yeah.
Israelites.
Yeah. 12 tribes
They
of Israel.
are there
Yeah.
in terms of the Hebrew side of it, and in terms of,
Yeah.
I think, like where they think that they're from. I'm not sure if they think they're from over there, but the Hebrew side of it, and them being from here specifically,
Mhm.
like they're not from Nigeria claiming that they
Mhm.
Hebrew Israelites. They
Right.
from over here claiming they Hebrew Israelites. So it's just like, if they had this information, because they really working off the Bible, which
Yeah.
the Bible is just uh, Greek and Roman writings, you know what I'm saying,
Mhm.
that are really added on by priests and bishops and the church and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm like, man, getting back to the culture, teaching that to the kids, having festival feasts, having ritual rites, you know what I'm saying? Having certain
Yeah.
meat that we don't eat, or certain
Mhm.
calendar days that we observe as a holiday. You know,
Yes.
those are all things that can make strengthen the people, you know, and kind of get them back to an ancestral way of living or thought process, you know?
I agree, bro, 1,000%. And Miles, I see people that's starting to steadily wake up more, and people are starting to tap in and understand, hey, we are true to this land and we are from this land, right? What was that gap? And I know we've talked about it briefly on the part one, part two, but ancient Mississippian civilization was so fascinating that we have people like a Graham Hancock and we have white archaeologists that are fascinated by these stories. They're always studying these things. What was that gap between that and Native Americans that we see on TV today who are more lighter toned and they get accredited from being from the Southeast region and all of that, but not the darker hue people such as us who were there before? Like, what was that gap in time?
Right. So you have in the early 1700s, early 1800s, you have us interacting with colonists, churchgoers, uh, you know, whatever different leaders, different whites that are in the United States in this period of time. And they are looking at us as not the Indians. Like, they are, the Indians to them are these savage people that are in the plains that don't, you know, they chase game or whatever. They wild. They have some traditions, but they live in teepees or whatever. But the relationship that they had with us were like, yo, these people are barbers. These people are, you know, stonemasons, architects. They teaching. They got doctor, you know, knowledge or medicinal knowledge, medical knowledge or whatever. They're not associating us with being Indians. But there is this group of people that they're now calling Indians, because like the Indios, Los Niños Indios is a Spanish terminology history that started there. Who they were calling, that's who the Spanish was talking about, us black people. That was a different, you know, 50, 100 years, 150 years before the whole Indian um what do you call it when it changes languages, like when it's like anglicized or
Yep,
whatever.
yep,
You know
yep.
what I'm saying?
Anglized assimilation where you
Yeah,
get trained
yeah.
into being European, basically.
Right. So you have these Europeans from a different part of Europe now speaking their own language, and now it's not Indios, now it's Indian.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
Because these people are from uh England, or they speak in a different language. I mean, a different language, yeah. But that we all get tied into that because we so close and so closely doing business and having societies that they operating in, where we just kind of take on the identities that they given us as
Right.
opposed to identities that we given ourselves. Like, we still calling ourselves probably Indians and classifying ourselves on that, but they no longer want to do that because
Mm,
they are at the same time 1836, 1500s, 1700s. They all are finding out the information in Peru, the information in Mexico, and then they excavating in North America in the 1800s. They going in the mountains and finding all this information. So while we having our day-to-day 1800s life as a black person, I'm a barber or whatever, you know, I'm from Cherokee country, but it's the government that is going into the mounds, and they like, we gonna write this down, and we know that this person is from here, this his ancestors, but we gotta put our own little spin on this, and we gonna confuse people with this group of people that's in the plains that help us out from time to time or whatever, and we could go send them to Indian school and create a whole new
yeah. Indian
history
school.
about who the Native
Yes.
American is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, that's the whole thing. Is like the Native Americans a completely made up thing because we were speaking Hebrew at one point in time in North America. The Haitians were speaking Hebrew in Haiti in the 1500s. In Peru, in Brazil, they speak in Hebrew. But why don't the Native Americans look like the Haitians? Why does the Haitians look like the Brazilians and the Brazilians look like the North American me and you and the Haitians look like, you know what I'm saying, relatively me and you or whatever. You know what I'm
On the
saying?
same landmass too.
On the
So
same landmass.
why would this one group of people look completely different than everybody else?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then you have Native Americans who
Hmm.
would be, if the Mayans were the modern day Hispanic,
Hmm.
if that was the real people, the Native Americans will be connected to the Mayans,
Yes.
but they're not.
Yes.
They're
That's an
totally
excellent
different
argument.
people. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They're from East Asia, and then the modern day Mexican that call themselves the descendants of the Mayans are from Spain. You
Hmm.
know, but when you go into the real villages in Mexico and you see people that look like you speaking Spanish, you be like, oh, I
Yes.
understand. You know, like what the real people look like.
No,
That's
for
from the
sure.
land.
Yeah, Miles, listen, bro, you are not lying. All the people who were tuned in, make sure to check out Afro Cubans, Afro Mexicans, because Miles, when I studied abroad in Cuba in college, and it was Cubans that look just like me and you that they don't show on TV, who are
Hmm.
the ones who are in that land speaking Spanish. So, yeah,
Hmm.
man, you just
Hmm.
hit that right on the money because all of those things are true. And then, too, man, Montezuma talking about his palace. These people were so sophisticated. And I think people get like this negative connotation of thinking that, okay, when you talk about ancient Mississippians, that they were just living on just plains and not really advancing and things like that. But in all actuality, it was the complete opposite.
Are we able to pull up that Dr. Keith Ashley real quick? You remember that that
Yeah,
that
Dr. Keith
YouTube
Ashley. It was
conversation?
a clip,
Yeah, it was a YouTube clip. Are we able to do YouTube clip or
YouTube clip. It might get flagged.
oh, it might get flagged. Okay,
It
okay,
might get flat. But Miles, actually though, I did have something I wanted to share the screen with because you had sent it
okay,
to me. Let me
okay,
hit
bet.
share. But what I could do, I'll try to add her. Go to go to let's see if this share. I know I got the wrong thing pulled up right here. There we go. Miles, let me know if you're able to see what I'm seeing right now. I just want to make sure it's working.
Yeah, the
All right,
Zoom
cool.
screen.
Yeah, yeah, cool. All
Yeah.
right. Oh my.
Oh yeah. Let me read this part real quick. You know, more.
For sure.
Okay. Okay. So it says the Indian Archimagus is dressed in a white ephod, a waistcoat without sleeves. He has a breastplate of white conch shells and a wreath of swan feathers on his forehead. They have the daily lamb sacrifice. They have the same notions as the Israelites in relation to clean and unclean beasts. Hogs are unclean. There are
Mm-hmm.
no there are no eunuchs, nor have they the custom of circumcision. So some people had circumcision, some people didn't.
Mm-hmm.
um, for it says blood for blood is a maxim among them. They have towns of refuge. They have an ark with the sacred things deposited in it. In a note, it is said that they have a tradition of leaving their native land with a sanctified rod, and they came to the Mississippi. Of course, even even one is at liberty to judge that those people must have been Jews who had forsaken their home in the Holy Land and had immigrated to America. But this conclusion is very difficult to believe, inasmuch as no Israelite would admit continuity in the absence of circumcision. It is much easier to believe that the early inhabitants of Phoenicia and Palestine were immigrants from the mound cities of America. It say the cosmogony by implication does say so when it attributes to the giants the naming of Phoenician mountains and towns. There is still another question which has forced itself into notice in workings out the myths of the classics in their relation to the southeastern portion of the earthworks. It is the birth of the gods of Europe in that locality. Without the localization of myths, such a thing looks chimerical, but on study, it will be found that the description given by the early European settlers in Virginia concerning the customs of the Indians in those parts of the country creates a strong suspicion, to say the least of it, that mythology is only disclosing the real origin of Europe's gods when it brings them from the mound cities of the United States. Let the following account of the Virginian gods be read. Like
Yo, Miles, I got a question
that's
for you. What does this sound like? Because bro, you read something that a lot of people might have skipped over, that they left their native land with a rod to the Mississippi. It sounds like Moses, the Mississippi River. It sounds like parting the Red Sea. Like, bro,
yeah,
that's insane. I just had to say
yeah.
that. That's crazy.
And you got to think about like okay, the Jewish okay, Jewish rights are like agricultural rights.
Mm,
Okay, agricultural feasts, festivals, times of the year, your green corn,
yep.
when your crops become mature, you know, there's no agriculture in that side of the world. You know what I'm saying? It's famine over there.
Wow.
These are not river nations.
Milk and honey, land of milk and
Milk
honey.
and honey is not over there. You know what I'm saying? Like the riverous nations are over here. Like
Wow.
all of the rivers that you're gonna find is gonna be North America, Central America, South America. You know what I mean? So just to have that like understanding, like damn, this was an agricultural land, and
Mhm.
agriculture was like deified here. So
Yes.
it makes sense to have these origins, the origins be from here when agriculture is not like a regular thing in that side of the world.
Well, Miles, on the show Vikings, I think this might have been like the last season of it, right? You're talking about people from your Vikings, of course, but on the
Hmm.
show, they finally found America at the end, and they were saying this land is so rich, it's like heaven almost, that they have game that's unlimited. There's animals everywhere. You can grow anything. And it's like on that standpoint, this sounds like the promised land because it's like if you think about it, the world comes to America. The world does.
Hmm.
So again, something special has to be here.
Hmm. Oh, was you trying to show something?
Oh no, bro. Look, I was waiting on you. You good. But
Oh, okay,
yes, I
okay,
did
okay.
have something. I thought you was about to read something. Let me actually share this screen real quick.
Oh, okay, cool, cool.
I thought you was about to read another excerpt, bro. But I was just chilling and listening, man. But
Oh, for sure, for sure.
this picture right
Oh,
here,
yeah, my dog.
if you can, please break that down because man, seeing that I was like, okay, it's right in front of us, it's right in front of our eyes every single day. However, we need people such as yourself who have expertise in these fields so we can understand what we're looking at because
Yeah,
Europeans are constantly placing this in front of us and we have no idea what we're
right,
even looking at.
right. So, let me go into that real quick. Let me see. Uh, so this is like during, like the Renaissance
Mm-hmm.
time period. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Where you have these like princely halls or these cathedral
Right.
churches. Um, but this one is at, it says the door to the Prince Hall in the Cistercian monastery in Lubias. Lubi Lubias is guarded by a Negro and an Indian. So I guess the name of this particular place is the Cistercian Abbey in Lubias, a monastery that delights. Now, when you walk into this particular that particular room, they have these big statues,
Mm-hmm.
and in the description, when you go onto the website of this particular hall, they have a writing which is in a, I believe it's German, but the description says, when you translate it into English, it says the room is very richly decorated, full of sculptures and paintings. The ceiling is covered with a painting with Baroque 3D elements. So the Baroque time period or the Renaissance time period, this is when they are like really developing these sculptures and stuff that represent different parts of the world.
Wow.
So it says the ceiling is covered with a painting with Baroque 3D elements, and the entire walls are finished with Venetian stucco. The entrance is guarded by two dark skinned Atlanteans. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one Atlantean right there that has a feathered crown, feathered kilt, which is customary to Renaissance artwork when they're describing the Americas or
Wow.
personifying the Americas. But they chose to use the terminology Atlantean instead of using America like as an overall arching term for the lands or whatever. But it just makes sense though, because that's exactly who the Egyptians were being taught by. And let me it's one part in here. I'm gonna read out of this book right here, bro,
Okay.
real quick. So let me corroborate it first in here. Okay, so I'm gonna just read out of Ancient Mystic Oriental Masonry, uh Reuben Swinburne Clymer. So he's like the head of the Rosicrucians. He talked
Head of the
about,
Rosicrucians, huh?
yeah,
Okay,
he
that's
talked
interesting.
about he talked about the history um that has been hidden. Let me see. Okay. All right, let me check this part. So it says the cradle of symbolism used in all masonry is placed by many of the best authorities in that country, which they believe was first inhabited, the plateau of Tartary, and from there transmitted to this generation by the sages of India, Persia, Ethiopia, and Egypt. We are not indebted to either ancient Egypt for either religion or masonry, but to America. It is a fact that at Memphis, Egypt, and the pyramids, under the guidance of the kings, the mystic rites of masonry were worked many thousands of years ago. But at that time, Egypt and the continent of America were one and the same. In America, rediscovered in the 15th century. So they rediscovered America in the 15th century. They lost all knowledge of America. You know what I'm saying? This is like the Dark Ages, 1000 to like 1600 AD. That's like the Dark Ages, you know. But they come into enlightenment in the Renaissance period. So it says rediscovered. Um Rediscovered in the 15th century and repopulated in the 17th, was recovered Egypt and the Promised Land, or the land of the constellation of the Eagle. No matter how numerous or complicated the works of a lock may be, if but the right key be applied, the Great Pyramids prove to be the long sought key to the mysteries at once of mythology and of the great world religions. Especially interesting is it to the Americans in this year of the Columbian celebration of the 400th anniversary of the rediscovery of America to see it demonstrated that the cosmic terrors, hold on, I'm gonna get to the point, interwoven with the very warp and woof of all sacred literature, Christian and pagan, refer to the occurrences as literally true as the earthquakes of Lisbon, these suspendous events being connected primarily with the great destruction and recovery of equilibrium in the solar system, and secondly, with the consequent reckoning of the continent of America when the globe became involved in the consequences of the disorder of the skies. America, known to the mystics as Atlantis, when this ruin befell, was the seat of the greatest empire that ever existed, and its
Wow.
irresistible armies were terrorizing all Europe and Asia. So
Sheesh.
study of the American constellations, like and we talked in that other book where
Mhm.
the zodiac sign, the zodiacs being an old terrestrial map. So like when you do different knowledge, it's different fields that take you deeper and deeper into
Mhm.
where everybody is from.
Right.
So let's see. So this one is going to talk about the constellations right here, but I'm going to try to get through it real quick so
Mhm.
people could hear it. Study of the American constellations Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricornus reveals the immemorial antiquity of the name of America and the significance of the arms of the United States. The fact once recognized that in the it is impossible to separate the eagle from America, the land shadow with wings of Isaiah, over which accordingly appear two grand eagles, the red swan flying down the Milky Way, and the winged steeds, Iagasis and Equalus, all the wings known to astronomy, without taking the bear from Russia, Perseus from Persia, and a flood of light is poured upon the history and mythology, and where here heretofore much has been vague and inscrutable, now we are able to at least to see men as trees walking. Okay, now let me say this. when the following when following the course of the constellations, those immovably and perpetually fastened upon America are reached, it will appear that while all that is sublime in the historic past centers upon Egypt, all that is sublime in the prehistoric past centers upon America or Atlantis. So it's saying that in their common history out there, when the Egyptians was walking around, that was modern times for them, and we was kind of like we been there, but we was there a long time ago, and it was like only stories about when we was there. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So it goes on to say, it talks about, I want to read this particular part because it says that the Egyptians didn't have any idea that oh man, let me see, where is this at? I just highlighted it. But it was talking about us commissioning them and giving them the works and the knowledge, you know.
And Miles, man, you broke down some serious science too about not separating America from the eagle. And that's what we have today.
Yep. And the Birdman is
The Birdman, yeah, we spoke about
a
earlier.
big yeah, a
Yeah,
big like part of the pantheon over here.
yeah.
You know what I'm
And
saying? As
Miles,
well as
bro,
the serpent.
the serpent, the Birdman, and two, that author says something as well. Isaiah, right? Isaiah in the Bible. There's a particular Bible verse, I think Isaiah 41:10, where he talks about soaring like an eagle, renewing his strength. So that's
Mm,
that Hebrew heritage that's still there, and also the Hebrew heritage, and then back to the eagle as well. So I just found
hmm
that interesting too.
Yeah, it all it and when you dive into it, you go from the Bible, you go to
It's
different
crazy.
sources, it
It's
starts to
crazy.
connect.
It's crazy.
I really gotta find where they say, man, I had it here.
And you
Give me
good,
one
Miles? I'm just about
second,
to
big dog.
open up this door, but
Oh yeah,
keep
yeah.
going. Keep going. You good?
It say the people who erected the obelisks in Egypt and covered them in hieroglyphics, who wrapped mummies, involving them with the greatest care, knew no more about the pyramid builders than we do today. The majestic, voiceless sentinels, the pyramids with heads uncovered and lifted heavenward, stood there on the broad plain, silent and dumb, with no one to explain their origin when Egyptian civilization began. It
Wow.
say, of course, there can be no doubt the pyramids were built by Atlanteans long centuries before Egypt was a civilized country, when they were built in Egypt instead of on some part of what is now America. It says, oh, why were they built on Egypt? It says, because Egypt was the center of the world, or center of the earth, and the Atlanteans, with their vast knowledge, sought the center, for that will stand as long as time. So it's like we going out on expeditions and these journeys and you know educating the world, and these mythologies and these religions are being brought forth from our interactions with the rest of the world,
Right.
you know,
Yo, that's
and
insane, man.
it's insane. And it's so deep, bro. It's so deep, like it's crazy though. But
Hey,
like I
Miles.
wanted to have pull up. Oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, no. You cool, bro. Quick question too. So everybody's so fascinated with Atlantis, man. We had movies on Disney about Atlantis. There's always a historical documentary about Atlantis. But are we just standing on Atlantis right now? Instead of everybody's thinking it's this mythical place, but every single time that we're seeing the mounds, that we're seeing stories about Montezuma, the Inca Empire, Mississippians, are we already standing on Atlantis right now?
Right. So what they say is that there were parts, there was an earthquake, there was earthquakes, and there
Yeah,
were
it was the
like
flood.
floods. So
Yep.
at one point in time, if you think about it, like the flight that we have to take to the islands wouldn't have been a
Mm-hmm.
flight. It would have been
Ah,
that land that's now sunken. We would have been to
right.
walk across, just like we could walk from North America to Central to South America.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some parts in the Americas that are underwater. Like if they got sonar technology now, where they could fly a plane over the water, they could fly a plane over a condensed, highly
Mm-hmm.
like tree, like where all these different trees are. They could break through the trees with the ray, with the laser, and see all the different civilizations that's hidden inside of the rainforest.
Wow,
So
that's great.
the there is pyramids and things that are under the water that they see. So we know that there are parts of America that is underwater, that was populated, that do have structures, but Atlantis was still all of the rest of North America. So you have
Right.
parts that went under,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of us are where we were. So you got the remaining civilizations of Atlantis that still are not underwater. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So they try to make it seem like where is Atlantis? Where is it? You know, is it underwater? Is it the island of Crete or is it somewhere over
It's
there?
already right here.
They know exactly where it's at because it's explicitly stated.
What's yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's like explicitly stated in the craziest way. You know what I'm saying? With the craziest real verifiable sources in all of the highest, guarded libraries and basements and all that stuff.
Hmm. Miles, hey, you've been cooking though. I enjoyed this, man, thoroughly too, bro. But yeah, man, just hearing all those stories, I would just be like, yo, it has to be here. So, hearing that, it was you broke that one down.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, man. Um, yeah, the I wish it was like a panel that, all of the historians could be a part of and kind of,
Compare all your
settle the
information.
score. Yeah, compare all
For
the
sure.
information, settle the
For sure.
score, and
Yeah.
everybody get on the right track with, what the identity is. You know what I mean? Because when you really dig into the information, it's so vivid and so entertaining,
Hmm.
and it's so crazy that it's not like ours, like that we've claimed for ourselves, but other people have claimed it and wrote about it and got plans to keep it secret and all that type of stuff.
Come on, bro. Hey, you already know
So
I'm on the same page with you. And Miles as well. How do you feel about Pan-Africanism, right? About us being focused on Africa and sometimes, unfortunately, hyper focused on it and not thinking from like I would just say like an overall broader mindset perspective of okay, if we are the original man, then why is it so far-fetched to say that we were here as well? Why do we always have to be limited to we were just in Africa? You see people with our same complexion in Australia. You see it everywhere in the world. So why is it so hard to believe that, hey, instead of us, and I'm not saying throw away Africa, of course not, but just not being hyper focused on it from that overall mindset of this is the only thing, Egypt is the only thing, or West Africa,
yeah,
that's the only thing, but not from that standpoint, like you say, ancient Mississippian civilization. You talking about 10,000 years prior.
right. I think that our hang up really on that and our connection with that is really that we still have not solidified that we wasn't brought over here.
Hmm.
We really still think that.
Hmm.
And that is really that connector to that particular landmass.
That is
You know what
true.
I'm saying? So if we could somehow if the people could somehow just come into that epiphany or knowledge that yo, we was not brought over here like they told us we were, then I feel it would open up the door to now look at what state you came from as your
Hmm.
home or what state your
Right.
grandmama came from as your home.
Right.
And then once you start doing that, you start digging into the real knowledge, the real
Yeah.
history, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But yeah, I think Pan Africanism is it put us behind it put us behind the eight ball, Like it really wipes out the opportunity to research any of
It
this
does.
information that we just shared today.
Yeah.
Like it Pan-Africanism takes us into totally a different direction and anything that these writers, church,
Hmm.
priests,
Yeah.
whatever, real people that are got authority to talk about the subject, we don't even go and look at that
Goes against the
information.
grain, man. It's gonna make them
It go
uncomfortable.
against the grain, yeah.
Dismantles all that stuff because, bro, earlier, just talking about our ancient Hebrew heritage here in America, bro. That will deconstruct everything with the Pope, the Catholic Church, Israel, because
It would
then it says,
deconstruct
okay,
it
what
all.
was over here? So
Right.
yeah, man, Miles, bro, you bodied this. We basically did like a whole trilogy. If you think about part one, part two, part three. But man, in that text message earlier, number one thing on the topic list that I want for you to just cover this real quick because it is the most important is you had told me, hey, bro, next combo, we got to talk about how blacks are the true Mississippians. And I have to make this vividly clear. So if
Yeah.
you can, for the people that's trying to learn about this information, how can you make this as clear as possible for them?
Right. So the way that I try to make that as clear as possible is by showing the people who the Spanish and the French first encountered. Like that is what we need to be focused on. You
Hmm.
know, the Spanish and the French, when they first get here and they first get into Florida, is documented evidence about who those people are, what they look like specifically, the jewels and everything. We could go, the tattoos, we can go and
Yeah.
look at what they really did. Then when we look at James Adair, who lived with the Indians for like 40 years, and in the critical time period that we need to have him speaking about in, you know, he lived in 1775 with the Indians for 40 years, traded back and forth, and he
Wow.
wrote down how these people were the real Hebrews, the real Israelites, having all these different customs. So it's important for us to know and connect ourselves with the people that the French and the Spanish first encountered, which was the Mississippians, just happened to be the Mississippians from Florida,
Right.
you know? And then when John Ralph and all those people get into Virginia and they get into the Northeast, they're dealing with, you know, the Pocahontas story and all that. So which are still Mississippians from Virginia.
I was just about to
You know
ask
what
you
I'm
about
saying?
Pocahontas. Yeah, so that's
You
crazy how
know,
you brought that up. Yeah.
so it's like having that understanding, knowing the origins of black people being having started when they got here, France and Spain. It didn't start when they brought us here. That's what we had to understand. And we can go and look at what's my man's name? Albert Emerson Smith. Abbott Emerson Smith. Okay, he was like the lead researcher for the CIA.
Wow.
He is the person that wrote Indentured Servitude, you know, of Europe. He's the lead authority on indentured servants coming out of Europe, and
Wow.
he documents all of the evidence that shows that all of the slaves and prisoners and, you know, prostitutes and criminals that were being picked up and off the streets of London or whatever and put on a boat. He documents all of those different things and it's held at the highest esteem. He is the authority on indentured servitude, and it is totally a complete history than what we've been taught. So we've been taught that we were brought over here, but really they came here and they met our industry of our what do you call it, industrious
Yep.
empire.
Industrial. Yep. Yep.
So they can't, it's a the craziest thing that they did to us, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
by not
Yeah.
allowing us to have this information in the modern time. But
Yeah.
it's just imperative that everybody go look at Saturniona and look at him and then read about how he was practicing Mosaic laws and how he was having ritual feast and fast and purity laws. You know, this is big for black people. If you want to, if anybody's even interested in like the Bible, you know, read look at
Yeah.
Saturniona because he's doing Mosaic law before the rest of the world even is associating Mosaic law with Moses. You know what I'm saying? So, and he's not just the only one doing it. It's a plethora, a whole list of kings that are documented in these particular type of books that they talking about that are all over. You know, living by the Great Lakes, living down by the Gulf of Mexico, living in Wisconsin, living in Ohio, living all over North America, mound building, temple building, Mosaic law subscribing, adhering to that, you know, that's just what we gotta that's what we gotta focus on because Pan-Africanism is not gonna lead us to that. Like we have to understand who Satriana was. And I bring up Satriana all the time because he's the perfect visual aid for us. Because we could look at him and be like, dang, they created this in 1723, this sculpture of this particular Mississippian king that's in Florida. He tatted up. He got all his gold on. He looked just like us,
You look
but
like
he
somebody
not
today, huh?
promoted. Yeah,
Right.
he looked like somebody today, but he not promoted. And he was
Right.
he was subscribing to Mosaic law. It's mind blowing.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, let's see. Let's see. That's really what I wanted to like get across to the people, because once you have that understanding, then you can include yourself in the search and the quest when you're going down into Mexico and getting all that
Mm-hmm.
information and understanding the relationship with Montezuma. Now we could say, dang, we know exactly what Montezuma was about. We know who he
Right.
was dealing with. We know that they had government political meetings and groups, like how we showed that on the last one,
Yep.
with those engravings where you see the Mississippians and the Peruvians in the same meeting grounds in
That's
Mexico
right.
City, you know, and then they talk about the Jewish customs from Peru to Mississippi to
Wow.
Mexico, you know. So like understanding who we are, the Mississippians, whether you Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, you from Virginia, you from the Northeast, you Algonquin, or you Iroquois or whatever, these is
Mm-hmm.
all Mississippians.
Come on, man.
So just understanding that, and then having that information, like I said, when you go in and research in Mexico and South America, that is going to help us put the whole story together. Because then even when you go into um, going into the eastern side of the world and you learning about Mesopotamia, you learn about
Mm-hmm.
ancient Persia, you learn about ancient Babylon, you're going to understand now the
A whole
relationship.
different perspective.
It's a
Yeah,
whole different perspective once you
for
have
sure.
that understanding of
Yes,
what's
sir.
happening over here. I wanted to say one thing, we got
Mm-hmm.
time, but in the book one of the Iliad, Zeus and the other gods dine with the Ethiopians and Oceanus. So
Mm-hmm.
Zeus goes to the Ethiopians. Zeus goes he goes there for a feast, and the gods follow him. So he returns to Olympus, Zeus, on the 12th day. So in Homer's time, Ethiopia was considered a mythical land at the edge of the known world. Greek gods and heroes were believed to have visited this place, and the Ethiopians were the only humans on the planet that the Greek gods would respect enough to sit down and have dinner with. This is all mythological belief,
Right.
right? But the Ethiopians, this is not in modern day Abyssinia, like where Ethiopia is today. They're talking about the whole continent of
Mm.
Africa. So um, these are the burnt faced
Yep.
Ethiopians of this particular land. But what they don't tell you is that there were Eastern and Western Ethiopians. And the the Greeks, they revered the Eastern Ethiopians, but the Eastern Ethiopians revered the Western Ethiopians. So when you get into that information, you're like, who
Yeah.
the Western Ethiopians? Then you got the information about Incas and the
It's a whole
Mississippians,
nother
and
rabbit hole.
it's a whole nother rabbit hole, bro.
Yo, Miles, bro. Let me tell you right now. This trilogy, it was fire, but I feel like we gonna have to do a whole nother trilogy next, man.
Oh,
So,
bro,
hey,
I'm
when you get the
saying,
chance, hit me up because, man, each conversation I thoroughly enjoy these. This information is so needed because I think right now people are starting to wake up. But
mm,
everything is like very surface level. We aren't going deeper. Everybody's just not everybody, but a lot of people are just stopping at Indian, not thinking
hmm,
about further when you talk about ancient Mississippian civilization,
right,
Ohio Hopewell, the Mississippi River, mounds, everything that's like right in front of us, Satriona. We have to start getting exposed to that information. But bro, we got to do a whole nother trilogy because I think me and you, we just scratched the surface right now. And I already know the
mm,
people, they're gonna want more. So you already know, man, very soon we're gonna have to connect again because bro, you bodied this conversation 2 hours plus. So man, I appreciate you, Miles.
for
On the way
sure.
out too, bro, where can everybody follow you? Native, with the Leafs, everything. Get in touch with you, purchase from you, all of that.
Yeah, yeah. So nativesamerica.com, you could grab you some banana leaves, so non-tobacco, non-nicotine, it's a
Yeah,
blunt experience.
yeah.
Um in Wild West Los Angeles. You know, I'm on Instagram and trying to drop a little bit more on YouTube,
Yes,
and
sir.
working on a book. You know what I mean? Try to
That's
put
hard.
all this information in one place for the people, so it's
Hey,
not
we
just
need that.
hearsay. You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, man. So nativesamerica.com, Natives America on Instagram, and Wild West Los Angeles on Instagram, and the same
Yo,
goes on YouTube as well.
Miles, man, I'm telling you, you are a true pioneer in this space because in a few weeks, Graham Hancock, I swear, bro, he gonna be talking about the same thing that you already been talking about for years. Because watch, he
Bruh.
gonna be talking about ancient Mississippians. He's gonna be talking about the Incas, all of that stuff. I think he'll be going through North America, like the U.S., South America, all of that stuff. So you already know he's gonna talk about the same things that you already been touching on.
But you know what? It's gonna be interesting to see what he does not mention.
Bingo, and not
Because,
and what he
bro,
can't mention, what he
what he
can't
can't
mention.
mention, because
Yes.
bro, I'm scrambling through all these different stuffs. I thought I had all my stuff organized and highlighted and everything, but I'm like, dang, where it's at, where it's at?
Mm,
Because it's so many important things that I didn't touch on or get to say, but they have everything documented, archived, all of the people that ever spoke on it, ever was involved with
hmm
anything with this topic of information, dealing with the
Right.
church, dealing with
hmm
national governments,
Yep.
dealing with archaeologists,
Yep.
dealing with early writers, early settlers, early
Museums,
soldiers,
they play a big role.
museums.
Yep.
Yeah, they got everything documented in all of the sources that I showed and didn't show today.
hmm
And it's just gonna be interesting to see how he spin the story,
Hey, Miles, you already
because
know.
yeah, he kind of
Hey, we gonna
support.
do we gonna do like a whole reaction to it once it's
We
up.
should, bro, for
Yeah.
sure, for
Yeah.
sure. That would be great. That'd
Yep.
be great for sure.
Yes, man. But Miles, bro, I appreciate you, man, so much, because every single time, like, you don't have to share this information. So I appreciate you, for just trusting our platform, coming on here every single time. I have a blast. But you already know, once that show is up, and I think it'll be up like October 16th, we're gonna hop
Okay,
right back on and talk about everything.
bad for sure. Let's do that, big dog. And I appreciate your platform too, man. Big ups to
You already
everything that
know.
you do, man, for sure.
Yes, sir. Miles, you stay in touch. Once this full episode is posted, you already know I'm gonna share it with you. But yes, Graham Hancock, once that's posted on Netflix, man, we're gonna do a whole reaction to it, y'all, so we can get
Man,
Miles's his perspective, insight, expertise, and all that good stuff. So
for
you already
sure, for
know.
sure. All right now, big dog.
All right,
Appreciate
Miles.
y'all.
Yes, sir. And you be safe, Brody.